Welcome to the Life After Sugar podcast, the podcast that's not just about sugar, but about your relationship with it and also with food and especially with yourself. So if you want to discover your life after sugar and hear inspiring stories from all kinds of people who also cut out sugar in their way, at their pace, for their own reasons, this is the podcast for you. Because when you take away the sugar, you can finally discover the real sweetness in your life. I'm your host, Netta Gorman. And most people think of sugar as a weight issue or a diabetes issue. But what if it's also a heart health issue? So in this episode, I'm talking with preventive cardiologist Dr. Geoffrey Boone about the connection between sugar, inflammation, and heart disease. And we also talk about why prevention still isn't the focus of modern healthcare and what really damages our arteries over time and the simple lifestyle habit changes that can make a real difference long before heart symptoms ever appear. So we'll get to our chat in just a minute. But first, I just wanted to tell you that if you're looking for some free resources, then I have plenty for you. First, download my 5 tips to get rid of cravings. And those 5 tips may not be what you think they are. So go to sugarcravingsfree.com and download your 5 tips today. And while you're at sugarcravingsfree.com, why not take the Cravings Quiz? I created this Cravings Quiz specifically to help you start thinking more deeply about what triggers your cravings. And when you do this quiz, you'll get your personalized score as well as my practical tips to help you take your first step to get rid of cravings. Those free resources are at sugarcravingsfree.com. And to go even deeper, buy my new book, Break Free from Sugar Cravings, in either paperback, ebook, or audiobook format, available now on Amazon in most countries. Type in the search bar, Break Free from Sugar Cravings, or just my name, Netta Gorman. And on social media, come check out the Life After Sugar Facebook page and subscribe to the Life After Sugar YouTube channel, as well as my Instagram account at My Life After Sugar, which is where you'll get all kinds of inspiration so that you can see that it's perfectly possible to live a happy and active life, even if you don't eat sugar. All right, let's get to my chat with Dr. Boone. I'm here today with Dr. Geoffrey Boone, and can I just call you Geoffrey?
Yes, that'd be great.
And can you tell us where you grew up and what you used to eat when you were a child?
Oh, wow. I was born in Kansas in the middle of the United States, western Kansas, which is out in the middle of the prairies. You can see a tree for 10 miles away. The land is very flat. Ended up being the great American desert, and then eventually became the breadbasket of the world with wheat and various farm products that were produced in mass. And as they developed irrigation to make the desert fertile, there's a large underground river that goes under much of the of our state. And so I grew up there. Interesting place in that I loved growing up there. Realized that everywhere else is better after I saw the world. But it was a great place to grow up. Outdoors, a small town of about 10,000 people. My father was actually a businessman and a irrigation specialist as I grew up, and so we weren't really farm kids, but got to enjoy that. So grew up there and did all the things usual high school kids do with sports and school and that sort of thing. So I had a nice growing up there.
Would you say that you ate a typical American diet when you were growing up?
No, my diet was my father had been in World War II, was a sort of a war hero, won a medal in the Battle of the Bulge, and was basically starving, and before that grew up in the Depression.
Mm.
And so his favorite food was spam and Vienna sausages and fried bologna, because they were happy to have anything then.
Yeah.
So typical, white bread and meat and, you know, uh, uh, whatever we wanted, but it was more of the mass producing of foods that was beginning in the United States. A lot of tasty things that eventually we found weren't very healthy for us, but that was the diet. And then the weekend you'd go to grandmother's house and have a big spread. And the first steak I ever had, we call it pink steak, and it was just a medium rare piece of meat.
Yeah.
But that was we had no hamburger joints in our town. I
Uh-huh.
remember the first McDonald's came long after I was gone. So.
And what decade did you grow up in? Were you a
I was
child?
born in 1951, so
Okay.
the 50s and 60s was when I
Okay.
was at that small town.
Gotcha. And then you moved away from that area of the
Yeah,
States?
grew up there all my first 16, 17 years. Actually went to a junior college in my hometown where my mother was a professor, and we played college basketball, tennis. I was very much into sports,
Mhm.
um, and then moved off to the other side of the state for college, a small college, and majored in physical education.
Oh,
Um, so that was the first time that I realized, diet, exercise was more than just for fun and taste.
gotcha. So did you do your medical studies? Well, where did you do them?
Well, then I finished college, got a master's degree in exercise physiology at a larger institution called Kansas State University, and then at that master's degree was in the 70s when it was just being discovered that exercise was actually a science and that there was a lot going on. That was the late 60s, early 70s. And Dwight Eisenhower, the president of the United States, had had a heart attack.
Yes.
And his doctor was named Paul Dudley White. And he was the first doctor that ever realized that right after a heart attack, you're supposed to exercise.
Huh.
Most of the time, you'd have a heart attack and you just sit still and don't move. And they didn't really know what to do. And there was a massive epidemic of heart disease worldwide. If you read books about World War II, almost every 6 months, some important governmental figure was dying, just of a heart attack. So that ushered in a generation of the lifestyle part of heart disease, led by exercise, certainly after a heart attack. But I was then involved as a young fitness expert of getting just everybody to exercise, eat right, lose weight, all the kind of good things that we now know are so good for you.
Yeah, and which were what, just news to everybody at that point?
Yeah, I think it was still the medical profession was very poor at leading. Doctors were just finishing their stint as advertisers for cigarettes. You'd see
Uh-huh.
so smoking cessation was really taking hold. Um, Exercise program, marathon running was kind of a myth at that point. They thought if you ran a marathon, you might die if you weren't trained or you'd
Mm.
hit the wall. So I was leading exercise classes and started actually doing testing, looking at heart rates and exercise prescription in those days.
Cool.
Still mostly in the exercise realm. I think America was coming into just this plentiful food that was just being produced everywhere. Restaurants were health. There was no such thing as a health club in those days. So the big YMCA's in big cities were where I was working, and they served as kind of the inner central city sports and fitness club with sports courts and exercise classes. But nutrition was still very much individualized. People just kind of ate what they wanted, and there wasn't a lot of information in those days about good nutrition.
Mm. Good, yeah. So that's interesting that, we have an insight into sort of the development or the history of not just the medical field with relation to heart disease or heart health, but the outlook on exercise, lifestyle, and nutrition. What I'm hearing is it just, not that it didn't exist, but it wasn't a thing, it wasn't recognized.
It really wasn't. I don't recall much at all talking about nutrient content, sugar, um, calories. I think at that point, America was just barely starting to get obese. There'd been most of the first part of the 1900s was spent in massive wars and worldwide
Mm.
pestilence, and I think half of the world just was trying to find a meal of any type.
Yeah,
And then America, having been key in the world, along with Canada, Great Britain, to defeat the great powers. Then it became just a time of plenty where everybody survived. The Marshall Plan helped Germany and Japan get back on their feet. America was now kind of a world leader in everything, and it just exploded with everything from air conditioning to automobiles for everyone to everyone owning their own home. And just the
yeah,
good life was kind of rolling, and
yeah,
obesity was just barely getting to be a major problem.
yeah, yeah. And so you decided to specialize in heart disease slash heart health. I'm not sure which one we should concentrate on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, we're trying to prevent the disease. And so as I was to continue the story, I got a master's degree in exercise physiology, was coaching and working with people on their exercise programs, exercise prescription. Um, but I was still impressed that there was no real good medical leadership in this area. Um, I had met the woman who was to become my wife, and we were dreaming, how young couples start dreaming about things. And I was thinking maybe I should get a PhD in exercise physiology as a lead, trying to be a leader in this area. But
Mm.
that might be limiting, certainly a very important job, but limiting in just the exercise realm and maybe research realm. And she was the first one that suggested, why don't you become an MD, a doctor?
Mm.
And I thought, who does that? I've never heard of anybody doing that. I didn't have any in my family that did that. But as we began to look at it, there was so much more flexibility, power, influence that you could exert. As an MD, you can do a lot of things without anybody's permission. You don't have to have some leader, somebody enabling you because you had the sort of the pinnacle degree in this area. So that sounded good to me. Talked to a few real leaders. There was a guy named Kenneth Cooper who kind of pioneered jogging.
Uh-huh.
Even in those days, treadmills were considered controversial, and he sort of pioneered the idea of exercise and began to get into condition. And so he felt like if I could get into med school, that would allow me to do many more things. He had become an MD himself,
Mm.
so that empowered me. I didn't know it was hard to get in. I just walked down the street and tried to sign up, and they go, "No, no, that's not how it happens." So fortunately, growing up in the Midwest, about the main value you would have is you just always did your best. And so if you do your best, it's pretty easy to get straight A's. And so I had a good grade point average and had to take a few courses. But I was one of the few medical students that knew exactly what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
which is prevent heart disease, to not wait. They were just learning to fix it at that point with stents, bypass, emergency rooms, ambulances, catheterizations, pacemakers. They were learning to fix all of it. But it looked to me like the disease grew out of just a terrible life, terrible lifestyle based then on top of aging and genetics. And
Mm.
so all of that comes together, and people were dying much sooner than they should. And the data began to emerge that for the last 100 years, it's the biggest cause of death, men and women worldwide. And it still is by far the biggest cause of death. It's an insidious disease that just creeps up on you. And oftentimes when you die, you look great. You just drop dead.
Mm.
Up to almost 50% of the time, the first time you ever know you've got heart disease is you die, have a heart attack, stroke, or some event. You don't know that you got it at all. So
Yeah.
that bothered me.
Yeah. So
And
you don't actually know you've got it until you are dead.
yes, you're right. So then once I finished medical school, did my training, it became clear to me that it's one of the few diseases we don't measure. Like
Mm.
most of us don't know what's inside of us. We know about breast exams and mammograms. We know about maybe colonoscopies. We can look at our skin and see things, but oftentimes we had gone to the doctor because we felt bad. Well, this disease, you don't feel bad. And then they started to develop risk factors. But even risk factors are like cholesterol, blood pressure, blood sugar, different things like that are important, but they're not really the disease. You don't really know what to do with your cholesterol even unless you know if whether you've got the disease. So in the late 80s, early 90s, certainly in the 90s, we began looking for ways to find the disease. And that was very revolutionary in those times. Nobody really did that. You just talked about things. You maybe looked at your cholesterol and you and the doctor didn't know what to do. And then pretty soon you have a heart attack. Well, now we better treat things. And, so imaging became a big part of my practice, finding the disease. And that has led through 30 years of CAT scans, ultrasounds, and that has progressed greatly to where now we can actually find the disease, but it's not commonly recommended in the United States, Canada, Europe. Everybody's starting to look at it, but not like every 40-year-old ought to know what they've got inside. And that's pretty easy to do with CAT scans and others that need to be widespread.
So, I mean, for example, for women like myself over 50, we have breast exams or mammograms as here in Canada every so many years. But are you saying that, for example, in the States, there's no kind of generalized system where people have the what did you call the scan again?
Yeah. Yeah,
The-
they don't image appropriately in the United States or Canada or anywhere. Now, interestingly, the mammogram, they just did a study of mammography, obviously looking for breast cancer. Very important study for women. But the mammogram, if you see calcification in the mammary artery,
yeah.
it's like a heart scan. So the red dress and the pink ribbon program could get together and save way more lives if they used even the mammogram for women as a heart scan,
Huh.
because the breast is a few inches from the heart, and the same blood vessels that clog the heart or the brain to cause heart attack and stroke are sitting right there in the breast. And if you see a little bit of calcification, because if the plaque develops in those arteries, any arteries from head to toe, then you've got atherosclerosis. And then I think there's going to be a big revolution among women's health care, because the greatest cause of death in women by far is heart attack, stroke, and these related vascular issues. And
Hmm.
it really accelerates during the perimenopausal time.
Yeah.
And so actually there could be a lot of education around podcasts like this where women seek out cardiovascular screening at the same time that they're getting gynecologic and mammography evaluations to prevent cancer. And all that could weave together in a great way. And then it's hard to treat breast cancer. It's easy to treat heart disease, because if you find a little plaque, then your ideas about nutrition and inflammation and diet, and certainly then also the safety net of medication is developing as well. There's incredible new medicines that literally stop and reverse the disease that have no side effects. And so then I think at a certain point, women accelerate their heart disease risk way beyond even men as the postmenopausal time develops.
I want to take a quick break to say that if this is your first time here, then welcome and thank you for listening to this podcast. And whether you're new or a regular and you haven't yet rated or reviewed this podcast, could I ask you to scroll down and tap on the stars to rate this podcast, and also to write a short review to let me know how this podcast is helping you in your life after sugar. I love reading your reviews. And when you rate and review this podcast, not only does it encourage me to continue making new episodes, but it also helps to share this podcast and have more people see it, so that we can help more people feel better and lose weight with less sugar. So again, thank you for rating and reviewing this podcast and for spreading the word about sugar.
So there needs to be probably a worldwide, certainly a Western world strategy of imaging atherosclerosis. And then your cholesterol, blood sugar, all that comes into line as to how dangerous it is. So
Yeah.
that imaging can be done with ultrasound, CAT scan, and other things.
Okay. All right. And you were talking just earlier about prevention, which doesn't seem to be very popular with the general population.
Yes.
But what are some things that we could do, men as well as women, to in our diet and lifestyle to prevent heart disease?
Yes, very important. With all of these things, the earlier you start, the better. It's been found, a famous researcher, Valentin Fuster in New York City, Mount Sinai, is originally from Spain, has been watching the whole world for 30 or 40 years. The first place that plaque appears generally occurs at about age 25. So we've all got the beginnings of the disease at age 25. And then I'm going to just finished with the American Heart meetings. There's going to be the American College of Cardiology, the European Society of Cardiology. All of them are starting to unify around the idea the sooner you find it, the earlier you treat, the longer you treat, and the more aggressive you treat, the better. So all that means that everything we've got, the better we can be, the more it'll delay the other end of the disease by decades.
Yeah.
So I would say that nutritionally, I always kind of say that in your 20s, you sort of need to just be getting your life together, starting to decide what kind of person you're going to be. Then in your 30s, you really need to start looking, okay, now what should I be nutritionally, psychologically, from an employment perspective? I think developing a life of interest, stress-free living, good habits, that should begin developing. But about age 30, you ought to start looking at, do you have any relatives that died young?
Mm.
And did they have a heart attack, a stent, a bypass, a stroke, anything? You ought to start at least 10, 20 years earlier than your earliest relative ever had a problem. And then the first things you would do is start looking at food, probably more as just a necessity as opposed to a complete goal and pleasure in life. Then I think the key issue might be the closer you get your nutritional needs to the natural state, the better.
Okay.
Obviously, the more processed, the more highly processed, then you've just got trouble across the board. So trying every day to focus every meal with that possibility. Uh, Keep quantities down, but avoid those sorts of things. So natural things, even if you're going to eat meat, whatever you eat, the closer it can get to its real states, probably the better you are, the less processing. Now, processing has probably saved millions of people from starvation as well.
Right.
So that's a whole different part. Sometimes when bad things are happening, just any food is worth eating.
Yeah.
But, in America, you drive down the street and you can eat like kings and hardly anything's healthy.
Yeah.
You can get quickly.
Well, yeah, we
So that
often say overfed and undernourished in
Yes, that's a great way
modern.
to put it. Great way to put it. So that would be my approach. And then I think exercise every day. Look for opportunities to just be active, and then probably work up a sweat 3, 4 times a week, to really sort of push it here and there.
Mm.
Um, and much of the prescription for that would be quite good and quite simple. But yeah, that generally our end of the disease is fairly high tech, discovering the disease, and then often I feel like lifestyle is a bit like a trapeze act,
Uh-huh.
meaning that you're learning to fly on the high trapeze, but it takes a while and you fall and you want a safety net. So I would say your expertise is helping people learn how to fly on the trapeze, learn how to eat healthy, avoid sugar,
Yes.
look at the nutrients, the exercise. Whereas my work might be to build a little bit of a safety net so they don't land on the ground and die, because every day they're going to fail a little bit. And
Right.
so that would include, blood pressure medicine, cholesterol medicines, clotting, aspirin medicine, diabetic medicine. All those sorts of things are helpful as a cushion
Yeah.
as people are learning to eat healthy. So I've got enough medicine now I can keep myself alive to 90 or 100, but I'm
Mm.
not going to feel good
Mm.
unless I exercise, eat right, keep my weight down, and all that.
Right. Yeah. And the American Heart Association, not that many years ago, said that for saturated fats, They have now been found not to be the cause of heart disease. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, the diet industry in the medical research world is really crazy. It's so many historic studies that seem to prove things against themselves.
Mm.
When I was growing up, all of a sudden they thought, you should eat bagels all the time because it doesn't have fat in them, things like that. So, yeah, so I think a moderation of all is good. Like I think saturated fats are not good for you. They may not need to be as bad as some studies showed, but I think monounsaturated fats are a part of that as well. But I think avoiding excesses in anything is pretty appropriate. A good balance of things is appropriate. So there's always the debate, should you eat, skim milk or whole milk? Should you, all the different things that everybody's got their angles. And now there's a big surge toward eating a lot of protein to keep your muscles up. And that's tough on the kidney and may not be the best. And there's always a big fight between the keto diet and the fasting diet.
Yeah.
It's hard to pinpoint one. There's at least 100 good ones. My sons and daughter run the program from a business perspective here. And the other day I said, "Hey, how about I write a nutrition book?" And they go, "No, you don't. You'd just be another voice in a clouded wilderness."
Yeah.
The truth is pretty. The DASH diet, the Weight Watchers is good. The Mediterranean diet, they all are kind of good. And then different goals. Is your goal heart health, diabetes, or weight loss? Those become totally different diets as well. So I find that world very cloudy, and my voice would just be another confusing voice. Moderation, natural is probably the base of all good diets.
Okay, yeah. And and I don't find that your voice gets lost here. It's very clear to me. And the thing with moderation for people like myself and a lot of my listeners and the people I help is that it doesn't work with sugar. We cannot moderate sugar.
Yeah.
And telling
Mhm.
us to moderate it is kind of negating our reality. So, how is sugar related to heart health?
Yes, good. And tell me your theories about sugar as well. Do you avoid all of it? Do you like different processed versions of it? What are your
Me,
thoughts as well?
myself?
Yes,
I don't avoid it. I just don't eat it. It's
yes,
not the same for me. It's not
yeah.
like I want to and but I avoid it. I'm just not interested in the taste of it anymore. Lost the taste for sweetness. So I personally don't eat any type of sweet food, whether it's with added sugar or natural sugar. My taste buds get overwhelmed with sweet tastes.
You're right. And then things like a carrot is very sweet to you.
Right.
Or I've noticed that as well. So the natural sweetness of just food comes out if you're not overwhelming it with sugar or sugar substitute products. Yeah.
Exactly. And for myself personally, I don't eat any types of grains or flour either, or sweeteners.
Yes, one of my patients is developed a farm with some of the original grains from England, and is very very expensive flour, but it has no gluten sensitivity.
Yeah, yeah.
It's back to the original
Right.
work. So it's interesting the possibilities there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, from the little reading I've done, obviously I'm not an MD, but I understood that sugar is inflammatory
Yes.
and that it could be somehow linked to the inflammation and the plaque in arteries. Did I understand that right?
Yeah, very much so. I think sugar and then our body's excess sugar that just happens when you have insulin resistance. And literally all foods eventually, most of them come down to a sugar type of a product, whether you're eating pure sugar or not. But I believe the inflammatory nature of sugar very difficult on the body. And I think the avoidance of it is a great idea. The less the less the better. I grew up in Western Kansas. They grew something called sugar beets.
Yes, we have
And
that
then in
in Canada.
Hawaii, it's sugar cane, and
Right.
so it really was the everybody in the world would crave it, but it was hard to get. And
Mm.
now it's just so plentiful, putting sugar on top of sugar cereal. It is amazing. And then it overwhelms your taste buds and it creates, I think our food supply is kind of creates an addiction. That
Oh, yeah.
once you allow yourself on that pathway, it's hard to stop. Everything tastes so good. But things like French fries, donuts, a foods is pretty bad if you can't save it and eat it as a leftover a few hours later. And most things are just terrible a few hours later. Uh,
Yeah, I agree. And in that context, how is moderation possible?
Yes, very, very difficult. Now, what are your thoughts? The GLP-1 inhibitors are quite
Yeah.
interesting
Mm.
in that they begin to create an ability for the human to moderate this overwhelming desire and plentiful nature of food.
Mm.
Good food, bad food across the board. And so that is a good lesson. The GLP-1s are kind of a glucagon-like peptide is like a natural phenomenon of satiety. But the God-given reason for that is it lasts only for a couple of hours. And then we had to
Exactly.
go hunt for our next food.
Mm.
Well, then the drugs extend it for a day, like Victoza, Bydureon, Byetta, and then they now can extend it to a week
Mm.
with the Ozempic and Mounjaro offshoots. And I find those necessary for a lot of the population who just can't do it by
Right.
themselves.
Yeah.
It takes so much effort to constantly avoid that, but it's a worthwhile effort.
Yeah.
I've noticed that my well-meaning is overwhelmed by a lot of pizza left over, or
Mhm.
my well-meaning and well-intended approach is overwhelmed by a wedding where there's hundreds of little pastries that are just sitting there,
Yes.
Every time I got going on the process, it gets overwhelmed by something, it takes incredible resolve.
Yeah, it does at first. I mean, in my experience has been that it takes a lot of resolve for a little while, and then once it's off your radar and your taste buds have had a chance to regenerate and change, it just falls off your radar. It's not even attractive anymore.
You're right. And you explore a incredible world of possibilities. I
Exactly.
noticed caffeine. I often would just kind of tie it into sugar as well. But I drink too much caffeine, but I think I need it.
Mm.
And one time I went off of it and I thought I was going to die for a day or two.
Yeah.
My brain wasn't working. I thought I was getting less intelligent. And then once I got through that addiction being over, I was just my mind was open even more. But then I had the night when I had to, work late and then once I got back into it, you're back into it. And I've noticed
Right.
the same thing with sugar.
Exactly.
Even GLP-1s, I've got thousands of people that take GLP-1s, and I'm a big fan of them. They're amazing for the heart, the brain, sleep apnea, fatty liver. They allow people to maybe learn what you're teaching. They give them a little hope to get over the hump.
Yes.
But I noticed that, and I'm kind of I don't do anything with my patient unless I try it first. And so I've noticed that I'm not as interested in food, but I still need the burst of sugar and caffeine.
Huh.
So even the GLP-1 for me, I have to watch myself because I don't really want to sit down and eat a whole nice salad. I don't have time to do it. But my tendency is, oh, I need a quick burst of sugar and caffeine to make it through the afternoon. So I've got to watch that even the GLP-1 has made me potentially more of a sugar addict because I'm
Mm.
not eating as much, so I have to, that's where my education and my motivation is having to come in now, is to now make sure you eat something healthy and not something quick that's going to give you that quick energy. So I've noticed that, and I tell that to my GLP-1 patients, watch out for that.
Very
Um,
interesting. Yeah, yeah, totally. Because there's a big psychological aspect to sugar addiction, and that relationship that we have with sugary foods that, is over and above what's happening biologically in the body. I know they're connected, but the people I help with, once we get over that biological side of sugar addiction, which is relatively fast to get over, then comes the real work, which is that relationship that we've developed with sugary foods, or in your
yes.
case, also with caffeine, right?
Yes, and you're right. That's a good word, the relationship, because we have a a relationship when we see donuts or sugar, it brings back sort of happy memories or
Yeah,
celebratory memories, or it's a treat. And to view that in a different way is very important psychologically.
yeah, yeah,
And then you're right about the inflammatory nature of products from the diabetic all the way down to just every meal, our whole circulatory system, if it's eaten poorly with a lot of sugar, it is just devastating to the linings of the arteries and takes them several hours to recover. And then we hit it again with another sugar load. And
yeah, yes. It's great to talk to an expert like yourself about heart health, because I'm no expert in anything, not even in sugar, but I am
no,
an expert in living my life.
yes.
And it's great to be able to share with the people listening your expertise. And if you had one piece of advice for people listening about sugar and heart health, what would it be?
Oh, great. I'd say every day as you start the day, begin thinking about how can I eat a few things that I'm going to allow my body to have the best fuel possible. Now, I found that water is very important. I think a lot of my problems with sugary fluids, sodas, even sugary coffee is probably more thirst than a craving for that. So I would say every time you feel like sugar or you feel like a soda or something that you know isn't as healthy, drink a huge glass of or a bottle of water.
Mm,
Then take 5 minutes, take a deep breath, maybe walk a little and decide, do you really want that extra donut? Do you really need that soda? And I found that is something I too often remember after I have sinned against the system. I've had that Coke and I go, why did I do that? I
mm,
should have had so I've noticed sort of filling myself up so I'm not eating poorly because of thirst, and I can also delay hunger a little bit if I fill it up. Then I can take a deep breath and choose some vegetables, some fruits, some lean meat, some natural products, as opposed to just gobbling down a sugar product and a bag of chips. So I
yes,
think pause, think about it, and then drink a heavy glass of water, and you might be able to avoid, even if you avoid two or three sort of nutritional mistakes a day, that'll equal to a pound a month, and you'll lose 12 pounds a year just by doing that.
fantastic. Thank you, Geoffrey, so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
Well, it's been my pleasure. Keep up the good work. Your message is fabulous.
Thank you. I love how Dr. Boone explains that link between sugar, inflammation, and heart health. And it develops over so many years that we might as well start cutting down sugar when we're young. But if, like most of us, your awareness of the role of sugar and inflammation has come about a little bit later in life, it's never too late to change course. And you might know all the things that you're supposed to be doing to reduce sugar and inflammation in your body, but the challenge is actually doing them. And that's exactly what we focus on in the Freedom from Cravings Formula program. Because I created this program specifically for women over 50 to help you go deeper into your relationship with food especially sugar, and also into your relationship with yourself. And so that you can get guidance and support to help you stop emotional eating, break free from sugar cravings, slim down, and feel more in control around food. In the program, you'll get step-by-step guidance and customized support through the 5-step formula that I've developed to help you ditch the shame and embarrassment that you feel every time your emotions make you slip or fall off the wagon, so that you can live your life with more energy and fit into your favorite clothes effortlessly, feel confident in your food choices, and so that you never have to feel like you're on some kind of restrictive diet. By the time you're 50 and over, you've spent decades looking after everybody else. And now it's your turn to take care of yourself. So let's chat about your specific needs and why you want to break free from cravings. Go to sugarcravingsfree.com to learn more about the Freedom from Cravings Formula program and to book a free video call with me to see if the program is a good fit for you. Go to sugarcravingsfree.com. That's it for this week. Keep in touch and see you soon for another episode.